Jim Pillen attended a meeting with President Biden today. President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris welcomed the nation's governors today at the White House.
The governors are gathering this weekend for their annual winter meeting in D.C., with governors from every state and territory invited to attend.
It's a chance for the administration to hear directly from governors from both sides of the aisle about what is going on in their states and how the Biden-Harris agenda is impacting their communities across the country. Iowa's Governor Kim Reynolds was not in attendance.